So, greetings of the day. On this day, in this video, you're going to learn JDBC database, database schema, and database process. So, let's go one by one slide. So, introduction to JDBC. So, JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity, which is an API that enables Java applications to interact with the database. So it is an API, application program interface, that enables Java applications to interact with any sort of database. So the databases are of many types. For example, Oracle is a database, MySQL is a database, DB2 is a database. Maybe the database may be hosted on a cloud environment, whatever you feel. So it provides methods to query and update data in a relational database using SQL commands. So SQL commands are of two types. One is called as query. Query in the sense we retrieve the data from a database. So we are going to use a select command, which may be having normal select or parameterized, or you may have a nested query. Maybe a join might be there. So all this comes under query. And coming to update data in a relational database, update in the sense we are going to create the data, that is insert the data in a table, or delete the data in a table, or update the data in a table. All this comes under update data. So JDBC acts as a bridge between Java application and various DBMS, that is database management system. So this is what we discussed in this slide. Let us move to the next one. So what is a database? A database is an organized collection of data that can be easily accessed, managed, and updated. It stores information in structured format for efficient data retrieval and manipulation. So common types of databases includes relational, that is MySQL, PostgreSQL, and NoSQL, that is MongoDB or Cassandra. So here we say that database is an organized collection of data that can be easily accessed. In order to access, the database must have some programs that retrieve the data or store the data. So in either of the ways, we are going to retrieve the data or store the data or modify the data. For that, we need to have a set of programs. Those programs will manage a database, okay, in the sense of either updating or retrieving the data. So it stores information in a structured format, means we are going to store the data in a database in a table format, where we may have a table or a collection of tables. There may be some connectivity between those tables, is called as relational database. So we are having some relational database which are having connectivity, means one table is depending on some other table or set of tables. So common types of database includes MySQL and Postgre, which are relational. And NoSQL means we are not going to write any SQL commands. Those are called as MongoDB or Cassandra. So understanding database schema. Schema represents the structure of a database. A database schema defines the logical structure of a database, how the data is connected to one another in a table or a view, whatever it is. So how that tables column is connected with another tables column. For example, you may have a primary key. Maybe your hall ticket number is a primary key, or serial number in a table may be a primary key. Candidate ID may be a primary key. So every candidate will have the other features like name, father's name, marks. Now all those name, father's name, and marks fields are depending on the primary key called as rule number or hall ticket number. So we say that a database schema defines the logical structure of a database. It includes table structures, relationships, constraints, indexes, and stored procedure. So a table has a structure. A structure represents the columns in the table along with the data types, comes under structure. Maybe the allowed size, how many bytes it is going to allow, or how many characters it allows, comes under structure of a table. Relationships means whether it is one-to-one relation, one-to-many, or many-to-many. So in order to establish the relationship between two or more tables, we require constraints. Constraint means conditions. The conditions that are imposed on two or more tables is called as a constraint. So we are having a primary key constraint. We are having candidate key constraint. Other constraints do exist. You can just Google it. So coming to a primary key constraint, we are having the primary key constraint called as non-duplicate value as well as non-null value. Even a single null value is allowed in unique constraint. One constraint is there by called as unique constraint. In that, one null value is allowed in a table row. Whereas in primary key, the condition is it should not have duplicate values for that column and it should not have a null value. Is called as a primary key constraint. Candidate constraint in the sense we may have more than one constraint. Unique key constraint is one, non-null constraint is one. Like that, if we have more than one constraint, then it is called as a candidate key constraint. Okay. Coming to unique key, we should not have duplicate values once null is allowed. Coming to non-null constraint, we should not have null values. Okay. So like this, we are having some constraints like primary key, foreign key, etc., etc. Coming to indexes, the data will be stored in a sequence in an order that is called as an index. We are going to create an ISAM table. ISAM table is created based on the index to retrieve the data fastly in a table. Okay. So a column which is not having any duplicate values or null values is called as, which can be considered to create as an index. Okay. A column which does not have duplicate values or null values can be considered to be created as an index. Okay. Based on that index, we sort the values or we sort the keys. And stored procedures in the sense we are going to change the values. The rest of the code remains same by updating the values or inserting more than one value. This thing comes into the picture that is called as stored procedures. A schema acts as a blueprint that dictates how data is organized and maintained in a database. So this is regarding database schema. So this is one example of the database schema where we are having set of tables and we have methods, attributes, etc., etc. So if you see that we are having different types of tables, they are connected. There is a relation between the tables, one-to-one, one-to-many, etc., etc. So this is one example. So overview of the JDBC process, Java Database Connectivities and API. Okay, application program interface. What we have to do step by step, we are going to list out here. So load the database JDBC driver, register the database driver in Java application. So first thing is we need to register the database driver in a Java application. That is the step one. Then establish connection. Use driver manager to establish a connection to the database. So we require a driver manager that establishes a connection to the database. Then create a statement. We require prepare SQL. So we are having a prepare SQL statement to interact with the database. So we interact with the database using a select query. In terms of query, we may use insert, update, delete. That is what we are going to do. That is in the next step, we are having execute query perform SQL operations. That is select, insert, update, delete, whatever it is. You may grant permissions also. So there are many things. So process results, it retrieves and manipulates query results. So process results means it retrieves or manipulate query results. Then close connection. Once we do the entire process, that is you are connecting to a database through a JDBC driver, you modify some data over there. After that, you need to close the connection such that there is no connection between the JDBC as well as ODBC. Means we are not going to have a connection between Java programming language as well as the database that we are communicating. So we need to close that connection. That is the end of the JDBC process. So step one. What is step one? First one is to load the driver. JDBC driver must be loaded to establish a connection. How to connect that one? So we are having class.forName, form.mysql.cg JDBC drivers. This is one example of one type of driver where we use a method called as class.forName. So whenever we execute a program in Java, in a class, we have one main function. Whichever the class that has the main function will be executed first in a Java program. So main function is the starting point of any execution of a code. So who runs this program? Our operating system runs the code. Okay, our operating system loads the program onto the memory, that is called as execution. When we execute a program, that program may have a class file or a class In that we have a main function. So wherever main function is there, that part starts its execution. This is general process. So who loads this program onto RAM or memory is operating system. How operating system loads? It uses class.forName, and the file name or the driver, whatever we want to load, that will be loaded onto memory. So class.forName not only loads the driver, that is program, or that maybe it is going to upload the driver, JDBC driver. Now let us move to the next step, establishing a connection. So use driver manager to establish a connection with the database. So we use connection con. One class is there by name connection. So we create an object for that one, reference for that one. So connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection. Then you are going to give JDBC MySQL, the URL of that particular MySQL. Then what is the root is the username, password, whatever you have set for the database, which is MySQL. So that is the password. This is with respect to MySQL. Similarly, we also have a different connection query for Oracle database, a separate one for MyAccess, etc., etc. So coming to step 3 and 4, creating and executing the statement. So what a statement has a query or a update statement, either of the case. Okay. So create a statement object and execute SQL queries. So for that, we create a reference variable to statement class or interface, whatever you use. Statement stmt is equal to con.create statement. This is how you create a statement. Then you execute a query. In order to execute a query, you require a result set rs is equal to statement.execute query. Execute query is used to execute a select command. Select star from student, select star from employee, whatever the table name is there that you want to load, then you are going to use the result set rs is equal to statement.execute query in brackets, the select statement. If you want to implement update, like update statement, insert statement, delete statement, then you need to write in the place of execute query, you need to write execute update. You need to write execute update. So step 5, processing the query results. So once we get the results that are placed on a tabular format in the memory, which is called as a result set. A result set is a buffer that holds all the results that are obtained from a database. Now that buffer or result set is available on memory. So result set object stores the retrieved data. It is nothing but a buffer on the memory. Iterates through the result set to process the data while rs.next, result set.next means you retrieve the data record by record. You execute the data record by record or line by line, whatever you call. Generally, we call them as record by record, one line at a time in the table. So statement or system.out.println is a normal output statement in Java. So we write res.getInt. If ID is integer data type, we write getInt. If not, we are going to write getString, getFloat based on the data type of that particular cell in database. If you don't know, then you can simply write rs.getString. If you know that it is an integer value, then write rs.getInt. If you know that it is float, then write rs.getFloat and so on. So this is how we execute the results. So whenever we execute a query, select command, all the results will be stored on buffer pool, or that buffer pool is called as result set. Result set is a temporary memory location where we are having the data, okay, in a tabular format. Line by line we retrieve, or record by record we retrieve using rs.next command. It displays the line in the buffer pool or record in the buffer pool, then it goes to the next line, next record. So that is the process. Coming to step 6, closing the connection. As we said, once we create the state, once we can establish a connection, we loaded the drivers, we established the connection, we executed some commands like select command or update command, then we need to close the connection once everything is done. So it is essential to close the database connection to free the system resources. What do you mean by resources? In a system, we will be having the memory that is utilized for implementing these operations. So we need to free them. So con.close is going to clear the memory. So that part is covered over here. Con.close means whatever the connection we have created will be closed. So coming to JDBC architecture. So JDBC is Java Database Connectivity, is an API application program interface that acts or interfaces with respect to Java application used to interact with the database. So we require a JDBC driver manager that manages communication between application and JDBC driver. So JDBC driver, it translates Java calls into database specific commands. So what is a database? It stores and retrieves data based on queries executed by the application. So altogether, in this video, we have learned about JDBC that provides a standard way to connect Java applications with a database. The process includes loading the driver, establishing a connection, executing the SQL queries, and retrieving the data. Okay, how to do this? A well-designed database schema ensures structured data storage and efficient retrieval. So proper closing of connections prevent resource leaks and enhances performance. So once you open a file, you need to close that such that the other person can open that connection. Or when we connect to a MySQL server or MySQL or Oracle server, one connection is established and you are modifying the data. Now we have some lock system that you might have studied in operating system. Like we have two types of locks. One is called as shared lock and another one is exclusive lock. So when we retrieve the data, that is only you are writing a select command, means only you are reading the data. Then we have exclusive lock, sorry, shared lock, where we can share the data or multiple resources or multiple processes can share the data. Whereas if you are modifying the data like update, delete, or insert, at that time, it is going to place an exclusive lock on that particular record or on that particular table, then no other process can modify. So we need to handle this situation very effectively. So we need to close the connections and prevent resource leaks and enhance performance. How a resource leak is performed? We are locking a particular record or we are locking a table, some other wants to modify it, then go on. That modification is not reflected. So that is regarding this video. I hope it is clear. Otherwise, just watch this video and listen once again. So thank you for listening this entire video.